You are about to enjoy a presentation of bilingual education. Bilingual education is a topic that has come under scrutiny in recent years. This presentation will reveal some of the reasons for that and attempt to explain why bilingual education is so important. In fact, let's explore why the group chose this topic in the first place. Guao, how about you?
Um, my reason actually is very simple because I'm a bilingual speaker and Chinese actually is my first language. I learned English since I was 8. So my bilingual background actually give me many chance to like I can study there in America and I can do this project now. And also I think it gives me lots of chance to study, live in another country and communicate with people who speak English. And also I think gives me a chance to have a fresh new experience in my life. So I'm doing this project. And what about you, Lihua?
I'm a bilingual growing up in China, and thanks for the Chinese bilingual education policy, I can speak Chinese and Korean. So I really think young learners can benefit from the bilingual education, and they can learn more things, more than language. If child can speak a lot of language, they can see the different words. So I really advocate for the bilingual education, and I really hope more young learners can speak more than one language. And how about you, Edward?
Well, my reason is actually twofold. Primarily, I've been teaching for many years. I started teaching early childhood in 1994. And during that time, I saw many students come through the programs I worked in that had difficulty with English and that would have benefited from a bilingual model. For the last 4 years, I've been teaching in a Head Start class, and through that, I saw a lot of children that would have benefited from bilingual education, but we have an immersion policy there, so there's no language other than English spoken. Children that are young have this ability to retain language and to understand language. It's built into our brains. In fact, I think we should look at a video now that will show us a little bit more about brain development and language. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Hablas español? Parlez-vous français? 你会说中文吗? If you answered sí, oui, or 会, and you're watching this in English, chances are you belong to the world's bilingual and multilingual majority. And besides having an easier time traveling or watching movies without subtitles, knowing 2 or more languages means that your brain may actually look and work differently than those of your monolingual friends. So, what does it really mean to know a language? Language ability is typically measured in 2 active parts, speaking and writing, and 2 passive parts, listening and reading. While a balanced bilingual has near equal abilities across the board in 2 languages, most bilinguals around the world know and use their languages in varying proportions. And depending on their situation and how they acquired each language, they can be classified into 3 general types. For example, let's take Gabriella, whose family immigrates to the US from Peru when she's 2 years old. As a compound bilingual, Gabriella develops 2 linguistic codes simultaneously with a single set of concepts, learning both English and Spanish as she begins to process the world around her. Her teenage brother, on the other hand, might be a coordinate bilingual, working with 2 sets of concepts, learning English in school while continuing to speak Spanish at home and with friends. Finally, Gabriella's parents are likely to be subordinate bilinguals, who learn a secondary language by filtering it through their primary language. Because all types of bilingual people can become fully proficient in a language regardless of accent or pronunciation, the difference may not be apparent to a casual observer. But recent advances in brain imaging technology have given neurolinguists a glimpse into how specific aspects of language learning affect the bilingual brain. It's well known that the brain's left hemisphere is more dominant in analytical and logical processes, while the right hemisphere is more active in emotional and social ones, though this is a matter of degree, not an absolute split. The fact that language involves both types of functions, while lateralization develops gradually with age, has led to the critical period hypothesis. According to this theory, children learn languages more easily because the plasticity of their developing brains lets them use both hemispheres in language acquisition, while in most adults, language is lateralized to one hemisphere, usually the left. If this is true, learning a language in childhood may give you a more holistic grasp of its social and emotional contexts. Conversely, recent research showed that people who learned a second language in adulthood exhibit less emotional bias and a more rational approach when confronting problems in the second language than in their native one. But regardless of when you acquire additional languages, being multilingual gives your brain some remarkable advantages. Some of these are even visible, such as higher density of the gray matter that contains most of your brain's neurons and synapses, and more activity in certain regions when engaging a second language. The heightened workout a bilingual brain receives throughout its life can also help delay the onset of diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia by as much as 5 years. The idea of major cognitive benefits to bilingualism may seem intuitive now, but it would have surprised earlier experts. Before the 1960s, bilingualism was considered a handicap that slowed a child's development by forcing them to spend too much energy distinguishing between languages, a view based largely on flawed studies. And while a more recent study did show that reaction times and errors increase for some bilingual students in cross-language tests, it also showed that the effort and attention needed to switch between languages triggered more activity in, and potentially strengthened, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that plays a large role in executive function, problem solving, switching between tasks, and focusing while filtering out irrelevant information. So, while bilingualism may not necessarily make you smarter, it does make your brain more healthy, complex, and actively engaged. And even if you didn't have the good fortune of learning a second language as a child, it's never too late to do yourself a favor and make the linguistic leap from hello to hola, bonjour, or ni haos, because when it comes to our brains, a little exercise can go a long way.
Legislation related to bilingual education is not a new concept. In fact, as you can see by this timeline, this has been a part of the education landscape for well over 100 years. There are, however, several key policies that have had a drastic impact on bilingual education in recent years. Lihua, can you tell us a little bit about how the door was opened to bilingual learners?
Of course, Ed. I think the ESEA opens the door for bilingual learners. It emphasized equal access to education for all students. Additional resources for vulnerable students encourage high standards for academic achievement from student teachers, administrators, and parents, and demands accountability from schools. But the policy of no child left behind closed the door again. Guo, could you explain how it closed?
Yeah, sure. Under the law of NCLB, all students are required to meet the specific state-developed annual targets of adequate yearly progress for reading, math, and science. Meanwhile, NCLB requires assessments for emergent bilinguals under Title I and Title III. Obviously, the NCLB closed the door for bilingual learners. However, the Proposition 227 did something. Well, we don't know whether it makes the situation better or worse. Ed, would you like to tell us more about it?
I'd be happy to, Guo. At first glance, some educators thought Proposition 227 would be the end of bilingual education in California, the main curricular program utilized for the past 20 years to instruct limited English proficient or LEP students in English. The reverse is true for two reasons. First, the UNS initiative does permit native primary or home language instruction for core curricular subjects upon the following conditions. 1, the parent comes in person to the school. 2, receives an explanation in understandable language of a bilingual class option available at the school. And 3, signs an informed consent waiver to permit their child to be placed in a basic bilingual transitional classroom after 30 days assessment in a sheltered English immersion classroom. This will be permitted based on the informed belief of the parent and the school personnel that this alternative approach to learning English is better suited to the child's overall educational development. The second reason bilingual education will continue is due to the fact that when parents of 20 students in any given grade level sign exemption waivers, the school must provide a bilingual class for those students or facilitate a transfer to school where the bilingual alternative class is available. Thus, bilingual teachers can be assured that they continue to be a vital and necessary part of the educational team effort to teach English language learners. But there are some obstacles related to accomplishing bilingual education. Let's take a look at some of the research that indicates the need.
From these tables, we can see that the number of bilingual students have been gradually increased in several states and mainly childhood programs over the last 10 years. It indicates that there is an urgent need for bilingual education for our young learners. Here are some news we found recently relative to our topic. We can see that last year bilingual education returned to the California. It is a good news for bilingual advocates that nearly 2 decades after California abandoned bilingual education, they have decided to repair to English-only instruction in California. Public schools across the state now have more power to operate bilingual and dual language programs, and also California invested new funds to train bilingual teachers, which established a climate of support for bilingual education. Another news we found is that there is no enough bilingual teachers in 32 states.
Well, that certainly is some big news. Thank you, Lihua. Now let's look at the current issues and some recommendations. To address the funding issue, let's hear from Guo.
Okay. We all know that bilingual language programs can incur additional costs relative to other instructional programs, particularly during the startup phase. Textbooks and other materials in the partner language, as well as training bilingual teachers, will add costs. Well, to solve this issue, we did some research and find that most of the school funding systems based on the actual cost of providing essential resource and conditions. To achieve congruity between schools' needs and funding allocations, the states could focus on how resources are translated into school and classroom learning opportunities, rather than only on the dollar amount spent. Firstly, make sure that the practice and instructional conditions within school and classrooms are enhancing learning, then allocating money to those practices, rather than to ineffective uses. A funding system redesigned in this way would not necessarily require greater overall levels of spending.
Having the funding can help get bilingual classes into the schools, but it won't make any difference if we don't have teachers who can teach the students. So how can we garner more interest in acquiring more teachers? First, we can use social media to connect with and recruit teachers. It only makes sense to use digital tools in a digital age. Second, we must address pay differentials. When disparities exist between teacher salaries and other related fields, potential teachers will migrate toward the higher pay, just plain economics. Third, colleges and universities should align their recruiting of prospective students in teaching programs to critical areas of need. This could help to fill vacancies that exist for our most neglected students. Fourth, schedule flexibility within school systems could tailor hours to what might work best for a prospective teacher. This could take the form of part-time, flex time, or job share arrangements. Lastly, encouraging bilingual teacher assistants to pursue higher education would tap an already existing resource that already has experience and the motivation to work with at-risk populations.
Miss Erin Geiger is currently a doctoral candidate and she is the Assistant Director at George Mason Child Developmental Center. She has just published an article on supporting authoring in bilingual children. Let's hear what she thinks about bilingual education.
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with us, Erin. We just have a few questions. We were curious about your opinion as it relates to bilingual education overall.
I think that there's been a lot of work done reviewing the current policies on bilingual education, seeing what's good, what's bad. I don't think we've moved far enough. I don't believe that the current system is set up to support all children who are bilingual and multilingual, or even most of those children. At the state, local, and federal levels, what I hear is that it depends on where you live. It depends on the resources in your community, the resources your family has, in terms of how good that bilingual education is. And it's not set up at this point in a manner that I think is equitable. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and I know there's a lot of research going on in the K-12 and beyond era, and I'm glad to know that. So hopefully we will make progress in the next couple years.
Well, speaking of K through 12, what about preschool? Are they left out in the cold when it comes to bilingual education?
So there is a lot less research on bilingual education in the preschool years. It's actually an interest of mine in discovering how the school setting is for children who are bilingual, what that experience is like. Right now, in talking with teachers and in talking with others, there's not a curriculum. There's not a, this is how we help children adapt. This is how we help children feel comfortable. Some schools, again, are more equitable. They understand how to support children's development and support development across both languages so that they are providing a foundation for one another. Other schools require that children only speak in English or only speak in another language, and it's not developmentally appropriate. It's not really supporting those children's development. So I think we have a long way to go.
I really appreciate your insights, and we've already learned a lot about what you've just told us. So you just lend credibility to this wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us.
You're very welcome.
While Erin expressed that there was a limited amount of research in the area of preschool bilingual education, there is some research that exists. Let's hear from some of those experts now.
These children are our future. They speak over 140 languages. They attend 87% of the Head Start and Early Head Start programs across the United States. They are 1/3 of the Head Start population. They are 310,000 children strong. These children are dual language learners. Children learning 2 or more languages have a bright and promising future, especially when their culture and home languages are supported. This animation explains why children need to continue to learn their home language as they also learn English for success in school and life. Some children learn 2 or more languages from birth. Other children learn their home language first, and a second language is introduced later. A child's sense of who she is begins to form at birth and develops in and through her culture and home language. Infants learn social skills when listening to their families speak their home languages and through the customs and routines of their families and culture. Social skills expand rapidly throughout the preschool years as children interact more and more with others. A positive sense of self and strong social emotional skills are the foundation of school readiness and life success. As a child acquires her home language and cultural ways, she's also learning many important thinking and school readiness skills, such as classification, cause and effect, and categorization. Over time, these concepts and other school readiness skills transfer from her home language as she learns English. When children begin to learn a new language, for example, English, they may not initially know all the English words to use to extend the concepts, knowledge, and ideas that they've already developed in their home language. For example, a child may be able to describe her block structure using shape names in her home language, but not yet be able to say the shape names in English. However, it may take some time before children learn the new words and are able to express the ideas and concepts in English that they first learned in their home language. What happens when home language is not supported? There is a common myth that a child's home language gets in the way of learning English. However, the opposite is true. When their home language is taken away, children's family and cultural identity can be weakened or lost. Children can no longer build upon the skills and concepts that they've developed in their home language from birth. Their ability to be ready for school and to learn English well is at risk. Without the support of their home language, children enter school at a disadvantage. Many struggle to catch up as they move through each grade. When children have uninterrupted social and cognitive development in their home language as they learn English, they are more likely to be ready for school and be able to read in English. They will more likely have long-term success in school and life. What does the Office of Head Start say about why children need to maintain and fully develop their home language? Multicultural Principle 6 states that effective programs for children who speak languages other than English require continued development of the first language while the acquisition of English is facilitated. There are many ways programs can support young children's home language development, not just one. The strategies used depend on each child's language skills and the kind of support families and teachers can provide. Dual language learners succeed in school and life when they continue to develop their home language and master English. What Head Start and Early Head Start programs do today to promote home language directly impacts children's future school success.
I wrote a letter to our state governor, Terry McAuliffe, because I think the policy of bilingual education excessively stressed the time of the program, so I suggest that extend the duration of English immersion program, because it is necessary to consider that students need a long period to master the second language and achieve a level of proficiency.
That sounds awesome, Lihua. Hey, Guo, did you write to Ralph Northam?
Yes, he's the next governor of Virginia. You know, this year California earmarks $5 million for the Bilingual Professional Development Program. There is no doubt that the bilingual students in California will benefit a lot from this change. I wrote to him for more funding because I hope that our students could get the same support.
Hey Ed, who did you write to?
Well, I wrote to Sal Romero Jr. He is on the Virginia Board of Education. But not only that, he was a former English as a second language teacher. So I thought that would be a good idea to implore to him how important it would be to have funding for more bilingual education in Virginia. In fact, I highlighted the success of immersion programs within Fairfax County. Unfortunately, there's only a few schools that have those programs. So I asked him if he would be willing to help us get more classes that could teach bilingual education within Virginia. And hopefully he'll agree with my assessment.
오늘 정말 뜻깊은 하루를 보내고요. 친구들을 만나서 너무 기뻤고요. 여기에서 전 선생님들을 만나고 아주 귀여운 개도 만나서 저는 오늘 정말 하루 즐겁게 보냈습니다.
Oh, claro que sí, porque yo aprendo mucho y entonces todos aprenden y escuchan y hablando mucho. Es muy bien esta participación.
我完全听不懂你们在说什么，不过我真的非常开心，这一次我们3个人可以坐在一起，一起完成这个工作，而且我们还遇见了 Aaron 的狗 Charlie， 他实在是太可爱了。
If you had been trained in bilingual education, you would have understood everything we just said, but you didn't. You didn't because you didn't have bilingual education, did you? Well, these guys did. I had a little bit. We learned a lot through this process. We're glad that you were here to experience it with us, and we hope you learned a lot too. And remember, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And a journey to bilingual education begins with a single word.
천지길도 첫걸음부터 시작됩니다.
谢谢观看。
Gracias por mucho.
새해 복 많이 받으세요.
Ciao.
Bye.